Hello, this is day one of mental disorders. I'm going to talk to you about, in general, about what is a mental disorder, but today's focus will be one of my favorite topics, personality disorders. I'd like to start off with a video. Now, when you're watching this, I want you to think about how do we describe this behavior, and what should be done about it, if anything. Is he really crazy? Pill for this?
Like, I am a god. Everybody says, who does he think he is? I just told you who I thought I was. A god. I just told you. That's who I think I am. I had plastic surgery because I was trying to look good for y'all. I got liposuction because I didn't want y'all to call me fat. About slavery for 400 years. For 400 years, that sounds like a choice. Like, you was there for 400 years and it's all of y'all? Park. Now everybody's trying to I don't give how much you sold. If you playing on radio, are you connecting? Picasso is dead. Steve Jobs is dead. Walt Disney is dead. Name somebody living that you can name in the same breath as them. Don't tell me about being likable. We got 100 years here. You ain't got the answers.
I'm asking you.
You ain't been doing the education,
bro.
You ain't been doing the education.
Calm down.
You don't have the answers though.
Calm down.
Because you trying to give me advice about something. You ain't got the answer. You ain't spent $13 million of your own money trying to empower yourself.
Yes, but I spent hundreds of thousands and putting out clothing lines at a smaller degree. All I'm asking you,
and it ain't no Ralph though.
Yo, Taylor, I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time. One of the best videos of all time.
I want to thank BET for, excuse me, Kanye, I'm gonna let you continue, but
Vic, come on.
oh,
Kanye. Oh, Kanye.
Kanye, you okay?
You okay? You all right, Kanye?
Are you okay?
Stop taking pictures of that, man.
Take a fucking another photo, man.
All right,
Don't take another fucking photo, man.
I just got here, homie.
Don't take no photos.
Okay.
Stop it.
Brother,
All of you motherfuckers, stop it, man.
I just got here, brother. I just got here.
Leave the man alone, man.
Kanye, I just got here.
Leave the fucking man alone.
All right, so now, obviously not everything you just saw was crazy. I don't like that word. I mean, the reason I don't like the word crazy is because it's just not very useful. Okay, I mean, I'm always like, well, what kind of crazy? Are you talking like hallucinations? Are you talking about like thinking everyone's out to get you, or depressed, suicidal? There's all kinds of crazy, and that word just isn't very useful. I'm not offended by it, but I just don't think the word crazy is useful. But there is obviously something, or maybe not so obviously, that something's a little off about Kanye West. But is there? You know, is he just part of a normal spectrum of human behavior? Or is he a little bit to the edge and maybe something needs to be done about it? And is it any of our business? I mean, be careful diagnosing people from a distance. That is, we don't want to be diagnosed from a distance. And we need to be careful. Yeah, you could say what you want behind closed doors, but let me encourage you to describe behaviors rather than slapping a diagnosis on people. It's not easy, okay? And we're going to get a little practice on that in this chapter, okay? All right, so write this down if you're taking notes. So what is a mental disorder? What is a psychological disorder? It's a harmful dysfunction in which behavior is judged to be atypical. Now, remember, not one thing makes it a mental disorder. Just because something is not typical, that doesn't make it alone, doesn't make it a mental disorder. Atypical meaning rare or not typical, and even, disturbing. It's like, what is disturbing? You know, I could give you examples, but then you think I was disturbing, you know? It could be something truly disturbing, like following people on the street or setting fires. And it could be fantasies about killing people, or just obsessing about killing people, or maybe not even. Anyway, there's a lot of disturbing things. Here's a word I need you to know: maladaptive. Now, we'll write this down on a separate note card in a second, but look, mala. Maladaptive means that it's personally distressing. We'll put that on a separate note card. Meaning, like, are you bothering yourself? Are you bothering people? Are you going to lose your job over it? And unjustifiable. Like, there is no reason why you need to be doing that. Okay? Like, for example, if you're drinking a 6-pack of beer every single night, then that's one thing. But if you are drinking a 6-pack of beer and you weigh 400 pounds and you have a very, very stressful job and you're only doing it for a short amount of time, then, maybe that is justifiable. Okay, so it depends. And by the way, all of this depends on culture. What goes on in Portland and San Francisco may be different than what goes on in Dallas and in Oak Cliff. The time period, okay? What goes on in modern day does not necessarily fly 100 years ago. Environmental conditions. I heard stories that during the Vietnam War, soldiers used a lot of drugs, but when they came home back to the United States, they weren't addicted at all, and it didn't have any long-term effects. Your environment does make a difference as far as judging your behavior to be a disorder. And it depends on the individual person, okay? Like I was using alcohol earlier. You weighing 400 pounds makes drinking a 6-pack of beer a little different than being an anorexic teenage girl with no tolerance to alcohol. Okay, so it does depend on the individual person. So let's say, I'm sure y'all know that I live in Dallas, and on Saturdays, I like to ride around on a unicycle wearing a pink ballerina outfit. I don't know if you knew that about me. So now, do I have a mental disorder? Is that atypical behavior, riding around on a unicycle wearing a pink ballerina outfit? Yeah, that's atypical. Is that disturbing? I don't know. I would save the word disturbing for something a little more extreme than that. Like setting people's houses on fire and masturbating to it. That's disturbing. Okay, that's a lot more extreme. Maladaptive. Is my wife going to leave me over this? Am I going to lose my job over this? If not, then I don't know if it's maladaptive or not. And unjustifiable? Oh, it's justifiable if I just like to do it. And culture. Remember, what goes on in Dallas is different than goes on in France or China. Okay? So, again, it's complicated. Okay? Now, this slide is a lot more important. Maybe this slide's a lot more important than you think in understanding what is a mental disorder. Because I have students say, Mr. Collins, is it a problem if I blah, 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 blah? And then I always go back to this slide. Okay? All right. So, All right. I'm going to save this for later, playing video games 5 hours a day of disorder. I've got a separate slide on that. Okay. All right. Write this down if you need to. This is important. Maladaptive. Does it hurt you? Is it personally distressing? You know, that's actually something I should have added to this definition. Is it personally distressing? Okay. So, are you going to lose your job over this behavior? Are you going to lose your family? Are you losing your friends over it? You know? So, is this behavior that Homer is doing, is that maladaptive? Is it a real problem? Well, I don't know. It's certainly embarrassing. I don't know if it's a real problem. Okay. I like to go back to alcoholism. So you're drinking 6-pack of beer a day. Are you doing it while you're at work, or are you doing it at home? Are you about to lose your job over it? Did you crash the company car because you were drinking? Did you drink on an empty stomach? You know, my point is that if it's not hurting anybody and it's not hurting you, then it's not maladaptive, probably. Okay? I mean, if it's not bothering you and it's not bothering anybody else, then I don't see how it could be maladaptive. It's not personally distressing. Okay. All right, so let's try this question. It's not the easiest, but let's do it. All right, Craig is a popular honor student who, unlike his reference group, writes his best papers while dressed as a ballerina in the basement of his college dormitory. His behavior can be considered abnormal only if abnormality is defined as what? Okay. So go with your notes on this one. Okay. The best answer is D. All right. Now, again, just because it deviates from cultural norms doesn't mean that that alone is abnormal. And it doesn't mean that just because something is abnormal doesn't mean that it's a disorder, but we're talking about what is abnormal behavior. In other words, atypical and deviates from cultural norms. Okay? Anyway, all right, moving right along. An important aspect for labeling a person's behavior as abnormal is that the behavior must. Okay, here's your hint. Think of the word maladaptive. Okay, the answer is, all right, maladaptive. It must interfere with you in some way. Okay, if you're not going to lose your job or your family or your friends over it, and it's not personally distressing, then it's probably not abnormal. Okay? All right. So check out this scenario. All right. Joe is 17 years old. It is November, and he plays video games 6 hours per day. His parents have remarked how his grades are bad, and his girlfriend broke up with him as a result. Recently, his games were taken away, and he handled the punishment well. Does Joe have a psychological problem? Okay, so go ahead and write about that. Okay, all right, now let me tell you what I think, and most students get this one right, but it's okay to get it wrong. But most students agree that Joe did not have a problem. He doesn't need therapy for this, okay? He doesn't have a serious addiction. But that doesn't mean that the behavior isn't maladaptive and there isn't an issue. He lost his girlfriend and his grades are bad, but at the same time, he handled his punishment well and he's working on it. So does he need therapy? I would think no, maybe not, but certainly but also think about the time period. Okay, if think about like November versus summer. Okay, playing video games 6 hours a day on winter break isn't that big of a deal, or summer break. But at the same time, this was maladaptive behavior. By the way, if you're interested, here's an article that on video game addiction. Okay, and the article says that it's kind of a real thing, but not really. It hasn't been acknowledged as a real thing in the United States, but there are people especially in Korea, who have died from playing video games for like 2 weeks straight with no sleep. Okay, so again, and another thing, there are some video games there are some mental disorders that happen in different cultures and different nations that are just not a thing in the United States. And there are some things that happen in the US that don't seem to happen in other countries. Anorexia is one of them. You don't see a lot of anorexia in other countries. Okay? Okay, so write this down. What is the DSM-5? It is a book of mental disorders. Okay? It is a big book. It's not that big, but it's pretty big. It doesn't have a lot of pictures, unfortunately, so I don't like it. But I've read it. It's not that bad of a read. What it does is it classifies mental disorders. Okay? And so if you go into any doctor's office or any counseling office or any psychiatrist or psychologist office, you will probably see a copy of the DSM somewhere. Maybe not, you may not see it, but there is one in the building. And so from now on, if you ever want to know, like, what is anorexia, what is bulimia, what is schizophrenia, this is what you Google: DSM schizophrenia, DSM anorexia, DSM depression, and you can find out what do the doctors think about what is that mental disorder. What is the standard definition? So do you have anxiety? Google DSM anxiety. Sometimes you'll get what you're looking for and sometimes you won't, but that's what the doctors use. That's what the counselors use. Okay? All right. Remember, it classifies disorders, but it does not recommend treatment. And if your disorder isn't in the DSM, then your insurance company won't cover it. Okay? It's not considered a real disorder. Okay? For example, video game addiction or cell phone addiction is not in the DSM, so it's not considered a real disorder. Okay? You could still get treatment for it, but your therapist would have to classify it as something else, like anxiety or something. Okay? All right. Do not write this down, but these are major classifications. These aren't, I'm not going to, I'll talk to you about it. I want to talk to you about the word psychotic, but I've never seen these on the AP exam, so I don't want to get into it. Most disorders are neurotic disorders, and then you've got a few that are psychotic disorders. The word psychotic means that you are suffering from hallucinations and delusions. Okay? Most disorders are not psychotic. And by the way, that clown is John Wayne Gacy, serial killer. Okay? All right. Now, you don't need to write this down yet if you don't want to, but a delusion is a false belief. We'll write this down later. A delusion could be something minor like, I'm going to UT even though my GPA is 75. Well, you may be going to UT, but you're not going on a full scholarship. Or she'll be back, she loves me, when she obviously doesn't. That's delusional. Okay? Or now a serious delusion would be like, Obama is trying to kill my dog. That would be a real serious delusion. Okay, so it's a false belief. Okay. And a hallucination is when you're seeing things that aren't there and when you're hearing things that don't exist, like voices, or the little girl that follows me everywhere and tries to talk to me. That's a hallucination. Okay. Okay. Okay, write this down. I've seen this once on the test, but it's also very useful in the real world. Remember, nature is your genetics, it's what you're born with, and nurture is your environment. We may have a predisposition for a disorder, we may have the genes for it, but not have the symptoms until the environment triggers it. So, for example, you may have the genetics for obsessive compulsive disorder. You know, your mom has it, your grandma has it, or your grandfather has it, and you're like, I'm fine. But then something traumatic happens to you. You may get in a car accident, or you may get assaulted, and then boom, now you have obsessive compulsive disorder. You didn't have the, so you had the bomb, but the trauma triggered it and lit the fuse. So you may have the genetics. For example, alcoholism may run in your family, but until you start drinking, you're not an alcoholic. Okay. Okay, one more thing. So again, this is how you might have the nature for, let's say, schizophrenia, but then if you grow up in a very calm environment and you don't have a lot of trauma, you've got loving parents and not a lot of drama in your life, you may never get the symptoms. Okay, same thing with being a psychopath. You may be a psychopath biologically, but if you grow up in a very loving and calm environment, you may never kill people or become a serial killer or something like that. Okay, all right, moving right along. So again, this model is a theory. It's a diathesis stress model, says that you need the nature and the nurture to ever have a lot of psychological disorders, and that's both nature and nurture. Okay, nature is your genetics or biological predisposition for it, and then the environment. You could be assaulted, you could be in a bad relationship, and then that environment triggers it. Okay, all right. So personality disorders. There are a lot of personality disorders. Basically, these are disorders where just take personality traits and make them a little bit extreme. These are inflexible and enduring behavior patterns that impair social functioning. These are mild in relation to other ones. You can still hold a job, but they are maladaptive because they make everyday living a little stressful. You can pause and write this down. I'm more focused on you knowing the specific ones. Okay. Now, the ones in big font are the ones that I think you should write down. I will tell you, I have never seen histrionic on the AP exam. I have never seen borderline on the AP exam. I don't think I've seen paranoid either. I've seen antisocial. I've seen dependent. Okay. But, it's not just about the AP exam anyway. Okay, I mean, let's just be honest. And I'm going to teach you these, but I'm not going to make a big deal out of them. Okay. All right, so let's get started. Paranoid personality disorder. When you think about this, I don't want you to think about the kinds of people who think like that are afraid of people. It's not like that. Like that guy is going to kill me, or my daughter is going to die in a car accident. I'm not talking about that kind of paranoid. I'm talking about your relations. Okay. I'm talking about that person that always says they're just trying to fire me, or that person that's like, that bitch is talking smack about me when they may not be. Okay? They think it's always about relationships with paranoid personality disorder. It's not like you think a plane crash, you're going to die in a plane crash. That's different. This is, my friends are talking about me behind my back. Okay? Or my boss is purposefully trying to fire me. I've always known teachers who are constantly like, they're just out to get me. The principal is out to get me. So it's a distrust of others and a constant suspicion that people around you have malintent, sinister motives. Okay? Now, my basic definition is everyone is out to get you, but I want you to know that it's more than just that. And as you can see, that these people are going to struggle in interpersonal relations. They're going to get more distant from their friends because they think that their friends are out to get them. And then they're going to lose their friends. And they may quit their job because they think that the other people who work there are out to get them. Okay? Like they think that every comment is a slight against them. Okay? Okay, antisocial personality disorder. Okay, listen to me, okay? Write down the red, but antisocial is not about being introverted. Antisocial is about doing bad things and not feeling shame or remorse. No shame, no remorse. If you need to write that down, that's fine. No shame, no remorse for bad actions. So some people, now it's not just serial killers, okay, but it could be. But these people do bad things and they don't feel bad about them. Antisocial does not mean introverted. So you may like to go to North Park Mall and key people's cars. That is antisocial behavior. Okay. Now, because this is such a common mistake among people, think about the one on the left as pro-social. Like you give to charity, you do what you can. That's pro-social behavior, helping old ladies cross the street. Antisocial behavior would be pooping next to the toilet seat or rubbing your crap on the walls or littering, okay? Or shouting obscenities in public. That would be antisocial behavior. Okay. So remember, psychopaths and sociopaths, those words do not exist in the DSM. So you might describe serial killers as having antisocial personality disorder. And just for fun, do you recognize any of these people? Okay, hit pause and see how many of them you recognize. Okay, all right, I'm moving right along. Borderline. I've never seen this on the AP exam, but I find it interesting. Imagine being on the border between love and hate. Imagine people, this is not easy to explain, but imagine people, imagine you're fighting with your girlfriend or your boyfriend, and they say, "Get away from me, I hate you." And then you say, "Okay, I'm leaving, goodbye." And then they say, "If you leave, I'll kill myself." I'm not trying to be funny, this is how they are. And they have a fear of abandonment, but at the same time, and listen to how crazy this is, they have a fear of getting too close. It's like, oh my God, how do you even describe this behavior? The number one book, if you're interested in reading a book on borderline, is I Hate You, Don't Leave Me. So if you type that into Amazon, you'll find it, or you'll find it at your local library if you're interested in borderline personality disorder. So don't get this mixed up with bipolar, okay? But borderline is like you turn on a dime. It's like very quick mood swings, okay? So think of it as an angry depression, okay? Self-hatred, lots of, they do cut themselves a lot. They do commit suicide and they attempt suicide a lot. If you're trying to break up with someone and they threaten suicide, that's something that borderline people do a lot. Okay. And they fly off the handle with anger, but then they cry in shame and depression and sadness. It's very difficult to deal with, and it is very difficult to treat this disorder. There's no pill for that. I mean, obviously, you put them on antidepressants and then put them on anti-anxiety meds, but it's really difficult to treat. Okay? It's kind of a joke, but because cats are so unpredictable, they're all borderline. Okay. All right. Read this if you're interested, but I'm going to move on. Hit pause if you want to read this if you're interested. Okay. Histrionic. Histrionic people have a maladaptive need for attention and drama. Notice I'm going to use that word maladaptive. It's such a good word. So think of people who just constantly want drama and they want attention. Okay? So it's like, oh my God, why are you so neurotic? Why do you constantly need attention? Think of them as drama queens or drama whores. I don't want to pick on women because men can be histrionic. They need to be the center of attention all the time. And when they are not the center of attention, they go nuts. Okay? Okay? All right, that's my dog there. Okay. Now, I'm not saying that Lady Gaga is histrionic, because remember her role. Remember, I'm just saying that wearing a meat dress is certainly an interesting way to get attention. Okay? But they will, if you're a woman, they tend to be flirtatious. They tend to say things like, if some guys don't pay attention to me and flirt with me, then I'm going to get really mad here. Okay? You might think of them as woo girls, girls that go to clubs and start going, woo! That would be histrionic behavior, maybe. But that doesn't mean that they have the disorder. But I knew a histrionic woman once who came on to her therapist. That's very much histrionic behavior. Okay? Okay. All right. I don't know if y'all remember Snooki. I'm going to hit pause. Remember, if you end up coming onto your therapist or coming onto your boss because you just can't stand the thought of them not flirting with you, that might be histrionic behavior. Okay? If you dress slutty because you want married men to look at you, that might be histrionic behavior. Now, men could be histrionic too. Remember the Kanye video that I showed you earlier? I mean, it's like, everybody pay attention to me. And Kanye even ran for president because he wanted the attention. Okay? Now, here's something about personality disorders. You cannot be diagnosed, I don't think, unless you're 18 years old. So don't think of teenage behavior as being with the disorder, but the behavior can describe it though. Okay? Okay. And again, if it's part of your job to get attention, then it's not really a disorder, is it? Okay, is Kim Kardashian histrionic because she wants to stay relevant? I don't think so. I don't think that means, just like with Lady Gaga, okay? Just because you do something doesn't mean that it's a problem, Okay. All right. All right. Hit pause if you want to look at this some more. Moving right along. Narcissism. Okay. So histrionic means you want attention and drama. Narcissists don't want attention and drama. They want praise and admiration. So it's a specific type of attention that they want. And narcissists don't necessarily want drama, but they definitely want compliments and they definitely want praise. Okay? So I would say that Kanye West could be both histrionic and narcissistic. You can be both, but you can be one and not the other. I have been a narcissist before, and I've worked on it, and I've never been into drama, but I have been into praise and admiration. I've been in teacher meetings where I thought to myself, if somebody doesn't compliment me, I'm going to get really pissed off here. Okay? And this is more of a joke. Okay. But the quote on the right is real. Now, again, I'm not in his head, but certainly based on the words that come out of Kanye's mouth, it suggests a problem. There's a whole subreddit on Reddit about narcissistic parents that say if you don't become a doctor, then you are a disappointment, and that you are too shameful for me. You will succeed. You will be the best. You will be better than everybody. And if you are not, then I am ashamed of you. You are a disappointment as a child if you do not have a lot of success at something. You must be the best. That's a narcissistic parent. Okay? And there's an entire subreddit dedicated to narcissistic parents. By the way, narcissist was a Greek legend about a guy who fell in love with his own reflection, leaned over to kiss it, and fell in and drowned. That's Narcissus. All right. So think about that. What's the difference between narcissism and histrionic? Remember, one is about praise and admiration. The other is about attention and drama. Okay. All right. Schizoid. Take introversion, and turn it into something extreme. These people want to everyone to leave them alone, and they do not want to be bothered. Okay? They don't want to be fixed. Again, I'm not going to ask you about this, but schizoid is about everybody leave me alone, and I don't want to be fixed. Okay? I don't want friends. So they end up becoming a computer program in their mom's basement or something. Okay? And they don't want to be fixed. They want to be left alone. They do not secretly wish for popularity. They genuinely want to be left alone. Okay. So they tend to seek jobs that require little social contact. Okay? So take introversion to an extreme. Okay? But that's not the only type of introversion to an extreme. You've also got avoidant personality disorder. Okay, now I have seen this on the test, so write this down. Avoidant is different than schizoid. Avoidant is they want friends, but they don't want to be criticized. They fear rejection, or if they fear being ridiculed or humiliated. Okay? So remember, there's a difference between schizoid and avoidant. I'm not going to ask you about schizoid, but I am going to ask you about avoidant. Okay? Dependent personality disorder. All right, I am going to ask you about this one. You might have heard of the word codependent. Co means together, codependent. People who are overly dependent on other people's opinions. Okay? And it's like you cannot think about yourself. These people do not want to stay single. They constantly need the affirmation of other people. And so they don't like to stay single for very long. Now, they're not as dramatic as histrionic people, though, but they definitely are dependent on other people's opinions to an extreme. Okay? I'm not going to ask you about this, but think of OCD as being annoying rather than having OCPD is more just annoying. It's mild, being extra clean and organized. I don't want to get into this. I'm running out of time. Okay, joke. Okay. So OCPD is more common, but again, I'm not going to get into that. Schizotypal are those people who like believe in ghosts, they believe in spirits, and or they believe that the government is run by lizard people. Okay, but they don't suffer from hallucinations and major delusions. So it's a little like schizophrenia, but not really. My dad has this. Okay. All right, pause if you want the joke. Okay, moving right along. All right, how do you treat this? Well, there's no pill for this. You need what's called cognitive behavioral therapy. You need talk therapy. There's no pill to cure all this stuff. Okay, you need to talk this stuff out with a professional. Okay. All right, I'm running out of time, but if you want to take this, and I'm gonna pause it for you so you can take this, but I'm not gonna make you take it. Okay. And plus, I mean, what is the information going to do for you anyway? Okay. All right. I'm going to go fast because I want to do a few multiple choice. Psychotic disorders frequently involve perceptions of non-existent sensory stimulations, such as voices. I told you not to write this down, so I don't want to make a big deal out of this, but remember, non-existent voices, those are hallucinations. Okay, DSM stands for, and the answer is that. That's not an AP question, so I don't want to make a big deal of it. All right, here's an AP question. As a child, Jeff often skipped school and engaged in repeated acts of vandalism and petty theft. As an adult, he has been arrested for running a dishonest investment company. So he does bad things, but he doesn't feel bad about it. The answer is not A, but the answer is B. Antisocial, does bad things, doesn't feel bad about it. Okay. Jolene rarely expresses her opinions or desires. Whenever anyone asks for her opinion, she simply defers to the wishes of others. Okay. So the answer is, she is overly dependent on other people's opinion. Okay. Retreat from reality by, all right, I don't want to make a big deal out of that, but psychotic disorders, when you have major delusions and hallucinations, and sensory experiences that occur in the absence of a stimulus. I'm going to ask you about this later, but that's a hallucination. All right, that's enough for this one. Thank you.